wanted the U.S. involved in the European war.
Yeah, and we didn't want to get our asses in China, and that's what that started all that. Oh, I mean, I had a whole argument about this guy because the whole thing was caused because the Japanese were cannibals and they're genetically cannibals and they were going into China and eating all the Chinese people. And it's like people have these fucking lunatic fucking theories. Like, you know, and it was just like, where did they come up with this shit? Like, fucking Japanese people are inherently cannibalistic?
Well, they're inherently samuraiistic.
Well, they're kamikazeistic too, then I guess, and they're blah 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 blah. Oh, god damn you people! Ugh, it was fucking crazy. Hey, it's the lizard guy. He's all dressed up. He must be going out or something. Drinks? Yeah.
Actually, Gary, that really did happen. The Japanese did eat the Chinese after invading the mainland, and it wasn't because they were inherently cannibals or genetically predisposed to. It's because they ran out of fucking rations.
Exactly.
There was an oil embargo happening on Japan, which was placed by the United States of America as well as a lot of other Western nations, which prevented them from receiving any resources or distributing resources to their troops on the mainland.
I understand that. That's exactly the argument I was making to the guy, is that there was no cannibalism was a last resort because of the fact that they were cut off. And it had nothing to do with any kind of, yeah, let's go eat the Chinese. I mean, it was like talking like they were farming them or something.
But we did have prior knowledge of the bombing of Pearl Harbor. In fact, a declaration of war was sent by Japan to the United States before they attacked Pearl Harbor, and it was actually intercepted by U.S. forces. And the declaration of war was never published. So it was kind of manipulation on the U.S. government's part. There was a lot of isolationist sentiment existing in the United States because of World War I, where the U.S., suffered heavy casualties. And the American populace really thought, well, what the fuck is the point of war? This is really pointless. It didn't benefit us at all. We only helped these European nations, and we, lost 600,000 troops. So, I mean, there was a lot of manipulation happening.
But that's exactly what they wanted. They wanted the declaration of war. What they didn't want was the first strike, okay? They had no idea they were going to get first strike. They thought they were going to get some formal proposal from the Japanese Empire saying, we're at war with you now. So then they'd have a formal piece of paper, a formal declaration, and now they could justify all kinds of shit. But they had no idea that the war declaration was going to come at the same time as a fucking first strike on Pearl Harbor. And apparently, from what I understand, there was the ambassador in Washington had the declaration of war before Pearl Harbor happened, and he was just late getting it to the White House.
Yeah, that's true. But I never saw any evidence that the U.S. expected war from Japan to come out of all of this. I mean,
I think they wanted the declaration. Like I said, I don't think they took Japan seriously. I don't think we had any idea of Japan's capacity to, to industrialize so quickly and become, so aggressive so quickly. So I think that's I think we wanted war with them. We just didn't think they were a player. And they weren't really. I mean, they were so overextended. I mean, they really were. They just ate up their people. I mean, their people made that war possible. When the casualty rates were horrendous for the Japanese.
Yeah, I mean, their industrial base was fragile, and they could not sustain a war with a major power.
Well, I'm just figuring the CIA knew that. I'm just saying that they had the calculators in Washington were probably calculating based on the fact that Japan would not be a player in any part of the the Pacific that we cared about, and that they didn't have the capacity to really hurt us. But like I said, when they took out our fucking naval fleet, they hurt us.
I'd like to address something in text. I did use the word casualties. I said 600,000, but in reality it was around 400,000. There were 300,000 American wounded and 100,000 deaths of American troops, which is pretty ridiculous considering how late we entered into World War But we did have some idea of what Japan was going to do when we placed the oil embargo on them. However, we didn't think that they would be as taking over their existing territory. We thought they would kind of, like let us do what we needed inside of the Pacific. They'd kind of keel over. We didn't really expect them to put up much of a fight. There was a lot of pressure inside of like middle management in the militaries. The officers who wanted to attack America. The leadership and the public did not, but there was a lot of military pressure existing within the middle for an assault on the United States to end this oil embargo, because it really was damaging their nation a lot.
Yeah, I wonder, you just mentioned, some guy mentioned in the text about this old conversation about an old dead war. But yeah, I mean, what about the next one? I mean, are people going to be having the same conversation, in their radioactive lead suits about, the war we're going to get in, the one we're stepping into tomorrow, because we really learned nothing.
Why not? Can you think of a single war that wasn't over-resourced, Gary? Can you think of a single one?
The Japanese armed forces with the admirals on one side and the generals on the other. And the generals more in favor of war than the admirals were.
Well, I'm just saying, it's just kind of pitiful that we're
an effective power.
Yeah,
but
Yamamoto knew this fight.
Yeah.
They had a run of victories early on. Yeah, we all know what Yamamoto said. But they had a run of victories early on because they were mobilized and they were fighting, colonial garrison forces basically on their doorstep. But,
it was not only the generals who were...
Once the powers they were facing mobilized, they just didn't have shit.
Cameron has made a point, I don't want it to get lost in the discussion, which is, can you ever name a war that wasn't over resources? I thought that was a great interrogative question. Pick it up, whoever wants will.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's just resources. I don't think the next war is going to be over resources, to tell you the truth. I think it's going to be over politics of I don't know whether you call it a resource. I mean, whether you're calling it economic terrorism or labor inequities or commerce or whatever. But I don't think it's just going to be about oil anymore. I think it's going to be about this capacity for like our country. I mean, we have done it. We've ruined other countries. I mean, Indonesia and other countries. We've ruined their economies, and countries can do that. And that's cause for war now when you ruin an economy.
No, it can most certainly be over strategic advantage as well, but would you not consider the ability to trade and mobilize military force a resource? I definitely would. But let's take a look at, let's say, the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Tell me that's not a result of China's monopoly on rare earth metals.
I can't make the argument, but I mean it's still kind of tricky because of the politics. I mean, it is kind of a convenient religious war too. I mean, take Israel out of the equation, and take the Arab hostility out of the equation. I don't know. Are we that desperate? I mean, wouldn't we more likely find a weakened Soviet Union a better target if we were going to decide to start taking something over? I mean, we sort of had the Soviet Union on its knees, and especially under Gorbachev and Yeltsin, well, it would have been pretty easy for us to move in, and we didn't want the liabilities, but we could.
Well, Afghanistan is a former Soviet satellite state, and one of the most interesting things about it is it's very rich in copper. Just the existing infrastructure doesn't allow this resource to be exploited. China right now is placing an embargo on trading these rare earth metals to the United States. And copper is a huge one because we rely on that for high technology. And if we're to really lose our access to copper, that is going to be the death of the U.S. economy because we specifically trade in high technology. And without that, the U.S. economy would just entirely crumble, worse than it is now.
Yeah, I just don't see that happening though, because there is so much Yeah, there's so much copper, legacy copper. So what are you going to do? Double the price of copper? I think we could survive it. Okay, it would be a marginal increase in prices, and we'd have to switch over to some other metals. I mean, there's lots of copper out there. We'd have to steal. We'd have to, whatever you call that when you steal from one part of your infrastructure and replace that to feed some other part.
Unfortunately, there isn't enough cheap copper in the continental United States. There really isn't that much copper left that we haven't tapped out. We're looking for new avenues. Still a rather rare commodity, and prices are continuing to go up. That's why a lot of emphasis is being placed on recycling of old consumer electronics, is because they're a great resource of it. I mean, eventually we're going to, use up all of this material, and we're very quickly getting to that point. I mean, there's just not that much left that can be taken from the earth.
Well, I'm not saying there's a limit to how much you can take from the earth, but I'm just saying there's a ton of, like I said, legacy hardware out there. I mean, you could take the pipes in my house right now. All right, I mean, I can replace them with PVC. It's not going to be that expensive, and it's a lot of copper.
Yeah, and the U.S. government and other entities are more or less right now asking you to take that copper, sell it, and put in PVC piping, or get rid of your old CRT monitor and take it to a recycling area. That's why a lot of government institutions have been set up purely to recycle these old consumer electronics. They're doing it in the name of ecology, but really it's to help the economy.
No, I'm just saying I just don't see it as being a pivotal. We got so many other problems.
Seriously, I don't
Copper's not.
know what the argument about copper is.
Afghanistan war, I think, was more about natural gas
In the United States
but
and
that's a whole
Chile
different
are the two
issue.
major countries that have copper. Yeah, Chile and the United States are the two biggest copper manufacturers and people that have the resources of copper on the globe. So what's this whole copper argument about? So really?
Well, let's not keep arguing it, okay? And what the hell is with you now? You got a parka and a hat? God damn. Where do you live? North Pole? Come on. It just don't make any sense.
Oh, dude, I live in fucking Alaska and it's cold up there. If you want to pay my fucking heating bill, then come on up. I'll fucking make you.
Well, it explains a lot. No, it does. It seriously, it does. I mean, yeah, I figure it's a fucked hard state. Yeah, that makes sense now. Okay, I get it now. No wonder why he's wearing a parka in the summer. Alaska. What kind of shitty fate got you living in Alaska? I mean, what kind of, would you get drunk or something, really? Get in a wrong boat or something? How the fuck does any human being end up in Alaska?
China's actually purchasing most of the copper coming from Chile and the United States, and they're paying a premium on it. And they have to, because their economic infrastructure is continuing to grow while America's is deteriorating, and unfortunately we don't have the assets.
Well, I'm just saying, as prices go, okay, I mean, how much is copper in the price of an iPhone? Okay, I'm just saying that even if copper triples in price, it's not that catastrophic.
I think you're discounting the huge amount of waste that goes into industries like electrical engineering and mechanical engineering. There's a massive amount of copper being wasted, and I mean just thrown away. It takes a lot to sustain these industries, a fuck of a lot of copper.
I'm just saying, though, there was a fuck of a lot of copper just fucking laying around. I mean,
your arguments are like all over the place.
How many? No one's calculated, but how many pennies do you think are still out there? Copper pennies. I mean, I know my father's got a fucking jar of them.
I heard that it takes 2 cents to make 1 penny.
Yeah, but not even that though. This whole guy's argument was about copper and saying how about we're gonna lose our resources and reservations of it. Chile and the United States have the biggest.
Okay, you already said that. You already said that.
No, I made the point. That's why we invaded Afghanistan, to get more of this resource.
No, I think it wasn't just copper, though. I think it was a lot of precious metals like uranium and other ones like that too. And like I said, the natural gas thing seems pretty obvious that that's part of the game here. all right, was the fact that they wanted to develop this natural gas shit because they want to do this liquefied natural gas crap, and they want to tanker the crap here.